everyone, welcome to Two Car Pros. My name is Ryan, and today we're going to be showing you how to replace the front brakes on a 2002 F-150. That includes the brake pads and brake rotors. But before we jump into that repair, I want to mention that at the end of this video, I will be showing you exactly how much money you're going to be saving by doing this repair yourself, rather than taking it to a mechanic. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our whole steering assembly and turn it. We're going to turn a little bit here so that way we get a little more access to the back. Now we can remove these two bolts that hold the caliper in place using a 13mm socket or wrench. There's one, and there's two. Now we can remove our caliper and place it on our upper spindle and remove our brake pads. One's already fallen off, so just remove the other. So the next thing we can worry about is removing the caliper mounting assembly. That's this bracket here, and it's held on with these two 18mm bolts. And usually these are in pretty tight, so maybe use a breaker bar here. There's one. So there's our second one, and we can remove the caliper mounting bracket, but be careful, as soon as you remove this, the rotor can actually fall off of the hub and smash your toes, so just be careful and mindful of that. So now we can carefully remove our old rotor, making sure not to drop it. It is pretty heavy. There we go. So we have our caliper mount and brake pad mount here, and what we can do is pull the slides out, and we can see that the grease in there is not brilliant, it's not great, so we're going to clean that off and apply a bit of new grease, some synthetic wheel bearing grease here. You don't need like a ton, you just put it on the end there and feed it in, and then make sure that the boot goes over the metal lip, and you can just wipe off the excess. That for the other side as well. You can see that they slide a lot better now, which is good. So, the brake kit we're going to be working with today is made by Bosch. There's the part number. I will leave a link down below in the description. Now, sometimes with brake pad kits, they come with new clips, and sometimes they don't. So if it doesn't come with new clips, what you want to do is take some carburetor spray and really clean this area here where the pad actually rides. But since we have some new clips, we can go ahead and replace those. And you just kind of pry those out. Like that. And then we can get our new clips. And those just press right into place. Just like that, super easy. I'm gonna do that for both sides here. There we go, perfect. And then as far as the brake pads go, you could set the brake pads in right here, but there's no like back tang to hold it in, so it'd be really tricky to do once we're trying to put this on the truck. So what I like to do in this situation is put the rotor on, then put this on, and then put the pads inside of this bracket. So that's the way we're gonna do it for today. And here is our brake rotor for today. There's the part number, a link down below in the description for you. We can go ahead and remove this. Comparing her to our old rotor, I can tell you it's identical. And basically what you're going to be looking at is overall diameter and how big the center hole is and how many stud holes there are. And this one is perfect for our application. So I don't really see any manufacturing grease, but I'm going to go ahead and clean it off with some carburetor spray anyway. Or you could use brake clean, doesn't really matter. There we go. And now the rotor is ready to be reinstalled on the truck. So what I've done here is use a zip tie to tie the caliper to the upper control arm, and I have the old brake pad, not the new one, the old brake pad, and some C-clamps here, and I'm going to tighten those evenly to recess both pistons into the caliper body. And I'm going to try to do this as evenly as possible. There we go. Once the pistons are fully recessed into the caliper body, these C-clamps won't turn anymore. So, you know, don't overdo it. You just want to make sure that the pistons are fully recessed. And these are 4-inch C-clamps, in case you're curious. And that's what it looks like when the pistons are fully recessed into their housing. And now we can replace our newly cleaned rotor. Oh yeah, that looks great. And then we can replace our caliper mounting bracket. And when you're trying to fix this, try pushing the rotor into its normal home in case the bolt holes aren't lining up. Okay, so we're going to take our 18mm socket here and tighten these bolts on down. And they're pretty big bolts, so, you know, pretty tight is going to be your torque spec. Alright, got the bottom one tightened. I'm just going to snug up our top. There we go. All right, now we can load in our brake pads. and those just slide in, just like that. There we go, looking good. All right, now we can reinstall our brake caliper here, pushing that straight on. Now you get to this stage, and what you can do is push in the slides on the top and the bottom, so your brake caliper can slide on. We can reinstall our bolts here. Go ahead and snug those bad boys up. And there we go, but we're not done just yet. All right, before we go anywhere, we're gonna go ahead and depress the brake pedal all the way to the floor very, very slowly and let it back up very, very slowly. What we're doing here is there's gaps between the pistons and the brake pads and the rotors, so we're basically taking up that slack, because if you took off without doing this, you would have basically no front brake pressure, which is kind of the opposite of what you want. So what we're doing here is putting those pistons back into their normal position so they can work efficiently. And you want to do this 4 to 6 times until you get a very, very firm pedal. And there we go. All right, so the work is basically done, but before you take the truck out, you really need to brake in your brakes. And the way you do that is you go about 10 miles an hour and let the brake pads touch the rotor for just a second and let off. So you go 10 miles an hour, lightly touch the brakes, and then let off. So you just want to introduce the brake surfaces to each other so that way they can brake in together, because they're both a machine surface, and if you just lay on the brakes at once, those brakes can actually get a glaze on them and become ineffective, and you've just basically undid all the work you'll do, and it won't stop as good, and it kind of negates what you just did. So it's never good. Make sure you brake in your brakes properly, and you want to do a brake touch about 6 times, and what that does is let that dust kind of floof out from the brake surfaces, and you'll be able to stop, which is really important. That's pretty much the big deal. So I wanted to talk about how much money exactly you'll be saving. Now, right now on Amazon, the total cost of the parts for both sides, brake rotors and pads, is $133.32. Which might sound like a lot, but it's not really a lot, because the shop is probably going to charge you $180 just about for those parts, because they charge about 35% on top, and then they're also allowed to charge you about $144 worth of labor. So before taxes, you're at $323.98 to have your brakes done by like a hometown mechanic, somebody in town that's not a dealer. And the dealer, really, the sky's the limit when you take your truck to the dealer. They're probably going to charge you a little bit more on the parts than a normal shop would, but probably not a ton more. But their labor is where they get you. They can charge anywhere from like $150 an hour. It's pretty high, so that makes it like $240 worth of labor, and your total bill from a dealer is $420. So if you take it to a shop, if you do it yourself rather than take it to a normal mom and pop shop, you're saving $190, and if you take it to the dealer, you're saving $286.68. That's a lot of money, and if you factor that into the lifetime of your vehicle, you could buy a really nice tool set with all that saved money. Honestly, the tools I use today, you could probably buy for way under $100 and do the work yourself. And it's really not very hard, and you make sure that the job is done correctly. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time.